Hey, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy, and today we're going to continue to look at anxiety. Over our past few videos, we've examined what anxiety actually is, what's happening in my brain and in my body when I experience anxiety, all the way up to panic. But we've yet to actually talk about what do we do with anxiety? How do I respond to it? And so that's today's video. We're going to look at how do I respond to anxiety or to panic. So let's go ahead and start the timer. We'll get right to it. So when we start to talk about anxiety and understanding not just what's happening in my body, but then what do I do with it? How do I respond to anxiety? I think that's one of the most important topics we can examine. Knowledge is power, and understanding what's happening is really crucial because it should then enable us to have a response, and more importantly, a productive response to anxiety. And that's what we're going to look at today. How do we respond to anxiety? And I'm going to argue that there's essentially two battles that we need to win when we're trying to reduce anxiety or even a panic attack. And those battles would be the battle of the mind and the battle of the body. We can't win one and not the other. We have to address both. And so to start us off, let's look at how we win the battle of the body. Now, as we talked about in our previous videos, anxiety is triggering a response in my brain that we often refer to as the fight or flight response, which in turn is causing a cascading effect through my body, creating physiological responses. And so now at this moment of heightened anxiety, even panic, my heart rate is racing and pounding. My lungs are breathing shallow and fast. My muscles are tense. My body temperature is raised. Glucose has been released into the blood for an energy burn for that fight or flight response. All these very physical things are happening. And so I would argue that the first thing we need to do is win that battle of the body. We need to slow down all of the body's responses in order to then let our brains shift gears out of that sympathetic response and into parasympathetic response. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you what might sound like the most cliche thing that a therapist could ever say, and that is that we need to start with our breathing. Now, I know that's very cliche. That sounds very standard, something you could probably have Googled on the internet, but hear me out. In the course of all the physiological responses occurring in the body during a moment of anxiety and even panic, breathing and controlling our breathing is arguably the most important thing we can do to slow these systems down and allow ourselves to return to a state of calmness and peace. So in that state of anxiety, as we've discussed, in that heightened response, our breathing has become very quick and shallow. Now, rather than start by responding to what we're thinking and what's going on in my mind, we're actually going to start with this breathing and with this body response because we want to slow those systems down before we even attempt to return to some kind of rational thinking. And so in our breathing, quite simply, what we want to be able to do is take control of our breathing. We want to take control of our breathing by starting to breathe slowly and deeply. Now, in a moment of full-on panic, when your breathing is very rapid, you're not going to be able to take one deep breath and slow this system down. We're probably going to have to take many deep breaths. So rather than teach or advise that you take 5 breaths or 10 breaths, I actually don't like to assign a numerical value to that. I think it's better that what we tell ourselves is, I need to take control of my breathing. And here's the way that I'm going to teach us how to breathe. Though there's lots of different ways, you can certainly look at box breathing and other such forms that you could Google on the internet. Quite simply, I think the best thing we can do is take deep, slow breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I'll explain my thinking on this and why I teach it this way. I can fill my lungs with a deep breath via the use of my mouth far faster than I can through my nose. By saying that we're going to breathe in through the nose, what we're saying is I'm taking that oxygen in slowly. And then by breathing out through the mouth, what we're actually going to do is blow that air out, almost as if you're blowing through a straw, if you can imagine that. And so quite simply, we're going to breathe in through the nose. We're going to hold for 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds, and then slowly, but in a controlled fashion, blow out through my mouth. And in doing so, we're doing a couple of things, right? This is why breathing isn't just a cliche thing that counselors and therapists teach our clients, but actually a couple of things are happening. Number one, when you can start to take control back of this panic by breathing slowly, that slow breathing will also slow down your heart. It will slow down and relax your muscles. It'll slow all these adrenaline-filled systems that are firing off at rapid pace. And in doing so, it allows you to be in control, and you are physically slowing your body down. But here's another kind of fun fact that I think is really important. When I teach people to breathe, I teach it like this. We don't want to imagine that we're breathing as in we're filling up our lungs, like you're breathing outward. But instead, I want you to imagine that you're breathing down. So when you breathe in through your nose, I want you to fill your lungs and feel as that air comes into your lungs and feel like it's pushing until you can feel that air in your lungs pushing as if it's pushing down on your stomach. And there's a really important reason for this. We have this incredible system in our body known as the vagus nerve that connects to our brain down through our spinal column, connecting to our vital organs, our lungs, our heart, down to our stomach. And when we breathe in through our nose deeply, all the way until you feel like it's pushing onto your stomach, what you're actually doing is you can press onto that vagus nerve. And when you press on that vagus nerve with your full lungs, breathing down towards your stomach, it sends a signal to the brain that says, slow everything down, reverse the fight or flight response, turn off sympathetic response, and activate parasympathetic response. That's your calming systems. So this whole notion of breathing isn't just breathing for breathing's sake. It's not just a cliche thing that therapists suggest. What we're doing is saying in a moment of panic, we feel out of control. But when I breathe slowly and deeply, I am taking back control of my physical body, and I am slowing down all of these rapidly firing systems, and I'm pressing on that vagus nerve, which is signaling to my brain, I am safe and I am calm, and it's okay to deactivate this very heightened response within me. So as a quick recap, breathe in through the nose, breathe deeply towards your stomach, hold for a couple seconds, and then blow out through the mouth as if you're blowing through a straw. And you may need to do this several times. I won't say do it 5 times, do it 10 times. You do it until you can physically feel your heart rate slowing, until you can feel the pounding in your chest has stopped, until you can feel your stomach loosen up just a little bit, until you can feel your muscles relax just a bit. At that point, that's a signal to you, I've reduced this panic attack and I'm slowing the responses. And this is a deeply important thing. If we can't slow the body down, we're not going to be able to take control of our thinking. Another quick thing that I want to teach in this video real fast is a grounding technique. Grounding is this idea that in the moment of panic and anxiety, it's almost as if our minds are detaching from our bodies. And we know that's not physically true, but the more wrapped up in anxiety and fear and worry and panic that I become, it's as if my thoughts and my mind are floating off, as if I'm not really present here in this moment. Grounding techniques are ways that we stay connected in the moment. And here's a really simple way to do that. As I'm taking my deep breaths and slowing this anxiety and slowing this panic down, I can partake in what we call the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And it's simple. It's very simple. We have 5 senses that we utilize. Our sense of sight, touch, taste, sound, and smell. And what we're going to do is walk through those 5 senses so that we can pull our brains and our bodies into the present moment. We're going to do that by identifying 5 things around me that I can see, and I'm going to name them. And I'm going to describe those 5 items. And then I'm going to look for 4 things that I can touch, maybe the fabric of my clothing or the leather on the chair that I'm sitting on. And I'm going to touch 4 different sensory things. And then I'm going to listen and identify 3 different sounds that I can hear. And I'm going to name them. And then I'm going to identify 2 smells around me that I can smell. Deep breaths as I'm doing this. And then lastly, 1 thing that I can taste. And all we're doing is utilizing our 5 senses to pull our brains and our bodies back down out of this moment of panic. As you can see, we're about out of time, so let me wrap up this video with a thought. We want to win the battle of the body, and we want to win the battle of the brain. In doing all of this, what we're doing is slowing your body's responses and allowing you to take back control when anxiety or panic have caused you to get into this elevated state. We want to do all of that, but last but not least, we want to be able to as well win the battle of our mind. So in our next video, we're going to examine, what does that mean? How do I win the battle of the mind and take back control of my thinking? So as we're out of time, just want to say, if any of what you've heard today sounds like something you've been through, sounds like it could be helpful for you, I encourage you to talk to your own counselor or therapist. And until next time, I'm Andrew with 10 Minute Therapy. God bless.